Hello, Nathan here with PixelPipes, and yes, we have a PixelBOX episode for the first time in ages. But silly me, I started recording before I cleared the table of the world's greatest computer, so give me just a second and we'll get this out of the way. So, why now? Why hasn't there been a PixelBOX episode in so long? Well, the truth is, I kind of just stopped taking donations by and large. I'm at the stage of my collecting where I actually need to be downsizing rather than taking on more stuff. And that's a work in progress. I've been kind of shedding some things here and there. But I did have a company reach out to me recently with an offer I couldn't refuse. A company by the name of NVX Systems, which is a system builder based out in Singapore, sent me an email and basically said they had a bunch of old hardware in their inventory that was destined for e-waste, by and large. And they had a list, and it was the longest list of retro hardware anyone has ever sent me. And it had some pretty insane stuff in there. Now, it's rare for me to receive offers for things I actually need. I'm pretty satisfied with what I have in my collection. I don't have anything really on any kind of a list of things that I need. And there were a lot of really desirable things, valuable things, collector pieces. They could have probably sold for a whole bunch of money. Things like high-end GeForce FX cards and high-end early 2000s Radeon cards, and tons of just retro motherboards, and just tons of stuff. Now, I don't collect motherboards anyway, but definitely there was a lot of enticing graphics cards on the list. And rather than picking out the most valuable pieces that I just don't need and wouldn't be reselling, because I don't resell donations, I picked through some kind of esoteric, kind of unusual graphics cards that you don't see often at all. In fact, some of it is downright rare. And here we have it, all the way from Singapore. So without delaying any further, let's go ahead and rip this thing open, take a look inside. All right, let's see. Do have some packing peanuts here, but ooh. Yep, this looks about right. Let me get all of these out and lay them out on the table here. All right, so here we have 4 graphics cards. And these are going to be what they would have originally been, kind of mid-rangey graphics cards. So you can see they're not very big, but there's a few unusual ones in here. Now, before I scare anybody about what's going to happen to those more expensive, rarer cards, they did mention that they're going to have kind of a museum or something of their more valuable stuff. Which is good. So I don't think any of the really high-end collector stuff is necessarily going to go to waste. And I'm probably not the only channel or collector that they reached out to. So there probably is others out there that got to pick through that giant list. Now, I also want to preface, I'm not affiliated in any way with NVX Systems. They're based in Singapore. I have never done any business with them. I don't know anything about their service. I can't, recommend one way or the other if you should, use them or not. But they're definitely worth a shout out, simply for offering to send these out of their own expense and, offer a new home to this stuff that potentially would have eventually been thrown out. So I want to start over here with this one. Now, there was a couple of cards on the list that I do actually already have, but they were interesting variants. And to start with, we have this one here. This is supposedly a GeForce 4 MX460. So we do see A170 Pro, WinFast. It's a lead tech model. MX460s have kind of an interesting history in that, well, they came out in 2002 with the GeForce 4 line, and they were NVIDIA's initial pitch for the mid-range card of that generation. And the market kind of balked at it. The GeForce 4 MX series infamously did not support the feature set of the bigger GeForce 4 Ti cards, namely the DirectX 8.1 support. So no pixel shaders, it was just DirectX 7, very fast DirectX 7, but nonetheless not the newest features for the latest games and effects. And there was some backlash to that, and ATI saw an opening, and they released some mainstream variants of their Radeon 8000 series, namely the 8500 LE, and then later on the 9000 Pro, which despite the name is actually a notch under the 8500 LE. And those supported DirectX 8, so NVIDIA had to regroup. And these cards didn't sell very well, the MX460 specifically, because this was $199 when it first came out, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And so, yeah, it wasn't super competitive. It wasn't super compelling for consumers at the time. And I do have an MX460. It's an OEM median card, which is the most common variant that you'll find for sale today. It seems like it's the one that got the most production, but these actual partner cards, these retail cards, are almost unobtainium, and I couldn't pass up a lead tech variant, one of my favorite add-in board partners of the era. So pretty excited to have this. All right, the next card I'm going to open is also pretty special, but kind of a similar story to the first one. All right. Nice. Now it's kind of interesting. There's a CD here. Looks like just a CDR. I don't know. Did they decide to send me a driver disc? Oh. Hey, that's cool. Anyway, this is a Triplex card. This is the first Triplex card I ever owned. And these are really, really neat cards. For obvious reasons. They use this very interesting, very cool looking kind of sparkly silver solder mask on their cards, which makes them pretty sought after. And quite honestly, I don't think they got much distribution outside of Europe and maybe some Asian countries, but almost nothing in North America. So you generally have to import these, and they're sought after for people that want to do themed builds or just people that want unique looking graphics cards. And supposedly this is yet another GeForce 4 MX460. Again, not a card that you see a lot of retail examples of, but let alone a Triplex one. I was pretty excited to see this one on the list. And this was one of the ones I immediately jumped after. And I wasn't expecting to get a retail disc for it, so that's pretty cool. This is in remarkably good shape. I mean, just absolutely pristine. It looks almost untouched. No dust. I noticed that on this one too. There's basically almost no dust. And one of the telltale signs if a card's been used, you just look at the video output connectors, and you can see, man, there might be some marks on there, but it's almost nothing. Yeah, I do see a little mark on the VGA output, but this thing got minimal use. Maybe some initial testing, and with the lead tech one over here, we do see some minor marks on the DVI port, but again, no dust, absolutely pristine looking, so virtually unused. So that's this is crazy. It's good, but trust me, it gets a lot better. All right, so these last two I saved for last for a reason, and that's because these are definitely the most special of the bunch. I could not pass these up, despite not taking donations generally. The offer was too good. I had to have these. So let me see which one I want to do first here. Okay, I had to cheat a little bit to see which is which, because I want to do these in a certain order, but I think this is the one that I want to do first. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. That is an SiS Xabre, and supposedly this is the 400. These are not common cards, folks. You might be able to find some variants of them from time to time. Generally more the 200 than anything else. But the 400 is pretty uncommon. And just to give a little background here, the SiS Xabre line was the last line of graphics cards branded under SiS for the consumer market. It was basically their last attempt to market gaming graphics cards to consumers. And their claim to fame was that they were actually the first to support 8x AGP, having been released in April of 2002. And they do have support for DirectX 8.1 supposedly, but it gets a little weird from what I read. But we'll get into that in just a second here. Let's go ahead and open this one. Oh boy. Oh wow. And wow, once again, a driver disc. Obviously this is yet another Xabre card, and aside from some rough looking capacitors here, which will need to be replaced, that one does look like it's just about to burst. This one here is the rarest variant of the Xabre line, the 600, basically the top of the line. And these were, I say top of the line for a Xabre card, but they were generally aimed at the mid-range market, again in 2002, similar to the MX460 cards that we saw earlier, competing against the likes of the Radeon 9000 Pro and such. But this one is a fair bit unique from other Xabre cards, and again, basically unobtainium. You can't find these unless you're extremely, extremely lucky, and that would be probably once in a lifetime. Certainly once in my lifetime. So again, one of those I absolutely could not pass up. Now for cards like these, you know, I don't want to just unbox them. I want to give you something a little more. And I want to go into a little bit of a history. And I want to bring this card in here. This was a previous donation, probably in the last PixelBOX episode that was aired. This was sent to me by Pancake. And this humble looking card is a Xabre 200. And with these three, I basically have almost the entire line. There was a Xabre 80, which was a very low-end variant. Did not support 8x AGP, which is not a big deal, but was limited to 64 megs of memory and so on. So, again, these came out in 2002, and as you can imagine, they vary in terms of spec, mainly in the way of clock speed. So let me put these in the right order here. There we go. So with the 200, this was based on a core built on the 150 nanometer process, which was pretty commonplace back in 2002. Most graphics chips of the time were built on that. It came at a clock typically of 200 megahertz on the core. It generally used DDR memory at 333 megahertz effectively. This probably has 64 megabytes, if that number on the VGA connector is to be believed. And I think also there should be a note on here Yeah, 64 megs for this one. These two should both be 128 megabytes, but it is 128-bit memory interface, so pretty good bandwidth for the time. And all of these cards had 4 PixelPipes with 2 texture units in each pipe. So generally a fairly wide execution core for the time, especially for a mid-range card, seemed on paper to be very, very competitive. The 400 here, also built on 150 nanometer, had a 250 megahertz core clock and an effective memory clock of 500 megahertz. And again, there might be some card vendor variations in terms of clock speed, which I won't know about until I actually install them and have a look at what the utilities tell me. I do have a couple missing screw heads for the connectors here, but that's not a big deal. Got plenty of those. Then you get to the 600, and the 600 was a bit different from the other ones apparently. And I didn't know this until looking them up after receiving this offer. This is actually supposedly built on a different core on a 130 nanometer process. Now, that's really interesting to me because the 130 nanometer process was brand spanking new back in 2002. In fact, this is probably the earliest graphics card, the first GPU to utilize it, as far as I know. I'd have to double check on that, but this is at the very least an extremely early example of one, and kind of makes sense that you don't see these anywhere anymore, because it would have been probably a very early, probably finicky manufacturing process with low yields, even on something relatively small, like a small mid-range chip like this, because previously I was under the impression the first 130 nanometer GPU was found in the GeForce FX 5800 Ultra. And again, that was a very low yield chip, didn't get out in large numbers at all, which makes it extremely rare. So, I mean, I guess same story with this one. But with that, they were able to hit a higher core clock, supposedly. Not by much, though. Again, we're talking 200, 250. This one, 300 megahertz to 315 megahertz, according to a review on iXBit Labs that I saw. Not a lot of reviews out there of this card, as you might be able to understand, but a little bit higher core clock on that one. And you can see it is using BGA memory, so a little bit nicer memory, clocked again higher at an effective clock speed of 600 to 630 megahertz. So I don't know if the memory was tied to the core clock or what, but again, kind of interesting that the memory clock is a bit higher, but not dramatically higher than the other variants. Now, I do want to get around to testing these cards and eventually making a video, because this is a really interesting era in general for graphics cards, and particularly this line of graphics cards. Again, this was the last released by SiS before they turned into XGI and started releasing cards under the Voleri branding. The XGI was a merger between SAS and Trident, and basically it became kind of a new entity in a way, a new branding. So this was kind of the end of an era for them in what was a long line at the time of graphics cards, going back to the earliest days, not just of 3D acceleration, but even before that with 2D cards. They had quite a lineage in the industry. But one of the interesting things that I read from that iXBit Labs review is that although they are advertised as DirectX 8.1 cards, supposedly they don't have any real vertex shaders, which doesn't make any sense. So apparently they released a driver later on that gave vertex shader support. They cited the 600 specifically, but it might apply to the other ones as well. I'm not sure. But I'm not sure how you can have DirectX 8.1 support without proper vertex shaders, which effectively also means no transform and lighting on these cards. Really bizarre and kind of similar to later Intel IGP chipsets, like the GMA 950, which, you know, had soft software vertex shading. Very, very strange. Yeah, I'm not sure how they got away with that. And that seems like that probably would have been a pretty major hindrance to the performance of these cards, despite having pretty decent fill rates. Not having proper vertex shaders, I mean, come on. And supposedly the pixel shading performance also isn't anything impressive either. So yeah, they might only be DirectX 8.1 on paper, but in practice you're probably more limited to older games and DirectX 7 and DirectX 6 eras, which is kind of a shame. But I mean, we were just talking about NVIDIA's mainstream cards of the same time frame, which didn't have support for DirectX 8. So was it really a major hindrance? It's arguable. Probably the bigger problem is distribution. They're very limited in distribution, as I said. These you can sometimes find, but these other two you're going to be a lot more hard pressed to get. And just not being available is kind of a major problem for sales. And driver support too is another big question. How good was the driver support? I mean, looking back at the video I did for the SiS 315, I mean, it functioned, but it definitely had issues in places. And you could play games, but you weren't getting the best image quality or compatibility. So did that improve with the Xabre line? Well, that remains to be seen, and should make for a very interesting video when I get around to it. But we have to make sure that these cards even function. So let's look into that. New to this PixelBOX episode is my open test bed. And finally got it all set up here. It's using a ASRock 775 i65G revision 3.0. I actually bought this when they were still being sold new on Newegg a few years ago. And it was, you know, $50 or something like that, which is crazy in hindsight compared to what they go for now. But it's a pretty good, pretty decently fast AGP test platform. Actually used to be my main AGP test platform, but now I got it in this nice compact rig. This is using a 3D printed open test bench created by Tech Ambrosia, which, if you haven't heard of her channel, shame on you. Go and rectify that immediately. But yeah, let's go ahead and check out some of these cards, and let's see if they work. Okay, I think to start off with, we're going to check out this one here. I'm not going to do every card that I received, but I did want to go ahead and try the Xabre cards, because I think those are probably the most exciting. And we'll go ahead and just see if it posts, see if it looks good. No artifacts or anything. I don't have drivers downloaded yet, so we're not going to see 3D on these just yet, but I think just seeing post will give us at least an idea, as long as it's not artifacting. Now, I did want to mention something too right before I switch this on. I'm filming this segment here some months actually after I did the initial unboxing, and you may have noticed when I mentioned NBX Systems and I showed their website that I was using a archive from the Wayback Machine. And that's because since they sent me that stuff, they've apparently disappeared off the face of the planet. And I have no idea what happened. There's no Facebook page, there's no storefront, there's no, everything was taken down. So, you know, RIP, I guess. You know, I don't know if there was something, a scandal or anything. I just don't know. Maybe they just simply went out of business. But it seems really kind of interesting to me that they were cleaning house and they sent me some stuff and then they went poof. But let's hope this card doesn't go poof here as I flip on the power. Noisy fan. does take a while for this system to post normally anyway. And I don't see anything, but there's no beeping either. Oh. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Huh. Alright, I just reseated it just to see if that makes any difference. Let's try once more. Well, that fan is like switching speeds up and down. Yeah, but nothing on the screen. I'm just going to give it one more try just to see. Just in vain. Just sometimes these old cards take a while to wake back up. Oh. Oh, but that don't look good. Oh no. Oh. Alright, I'm just gonna reset so maybe you can see a little better what it was doing. Oh, that's a shame. Oh, jeez. Oh well, I don't know what the issue is. Kind of looks like it could be memory artifacts, but wow. Oh well, let's move on to the next one. So that was the Xabre 400, but this next one, I'm going to be really heartbroken if this one doesn't work. This one is the 600, and I did go ahead and replace all the bulging caps on it. So that's been done before I ever did any testing with it, before I ever tried to fire it up. So it does have good caps. And man, I'm really hoping for the best with this one. All right, let's hit the switch. Well, the fan doesn't sound as bad. Yes! No artifacts! Yes! All right. One more. When I sent an email to Raphael from NVX Systems that I had received the previous package, safe and sound, he got back to me and asked if there was anything else. He sent me an updated list with some more modern stuff and wasn't too interested, but a humble person would have politely declined. But I went back and looked at the list, and well, there was something on there that I couldn't believe I overlooked. And I was like, well, if you're willing to send another one, there is something. And there's a couple other cards in there too that I went ahead and requested, and like, a week and a half later, already got it in. So just incredible. They sent it out so fast, without any fuss or anything. They're just like, sure, no problem. So I'm gonna go ahead and rip this thing open and explain what we have in here. Although I will say, it's looking pretty beat up. So we'll see how it turned out. All right, let's see what we got. All right, so this is pretty tightly packed in here. There's not a lot of space around the cards this time around. The box that they sent the first time was probably twice as big as this one, and this one actually has more cards. So, we'll see if they survive, but let's just pull one out here. All right, this one is a really nice example of a GeForce FX 5700 Ultra. I do have one already. You can see on that sticker there, it says 5700U.
but it's more like a reference card. This one's a very nice add-in board partner card with their own cooler. The Wise Fan 2. This is from Gigabyte. Supposedly, how it works is you have a 2+1 backup, which is basically 2 fans plus 1 backup fan. So one of these fans, I'm not sure which one, generally stays off and you have 2 operating, but if it detects that one of the fans has stopped working, the other one will kick on. So kind of an interesting design, I guess to cut back on potential noise, but either way, once again, this is another example where it looks practically unused, almost no wear marks on the connectors there. And to be honest, I don't really see any physical damage despite the rough trip that it had. So I'm pretty hopeful for this one. This is just the GDDR2 version. There was a GDDR3 version of the 5700 Ultra, which is much harder to find. Haven't seen hardly any of those for sale or anywhere. They were released really late. One of the first cards to use GDDR3 memory. So more commonly you'll find GDDR2. But anyway, so this one is a pretty nice one, but not the one that I was the most excited about. All right, now for the next one. Oh, yeah. So, I see what is potentially a problem here already. Yeah. That came loose, unfortunately, which could have caused all kinds of problems in terms of bashing the SMDs. For now, I'm just going to clip this down. Looks like I had 2 clips that came loose. So let's see if they still work. That one went in, and that one went in, and they're intact. So we'll have to see how that goes. But this, if it works, is a really interesting card. It does look like this one has maybe a bit of use to it. A little bit, just teensy bit of dust in the heatsink, and we do see bloated caps in a couple of places and marks on the DVI connector. I think that's the only one that looks used. You can see this is another one from Gigabyte. This is a Radeon 8500, a 128 meg version, and just from the heatsink being loosed, I can see that it was using TSOP memory, so not the nicer one with the BGA style memory chips. But nonetheless, you don't really see a lot of Radeon 8500s in general, let alone add-in board partner cards with custom PCBs and coolers. There's just not a lot of them around. And this one, there's a little sticky note here. Let's see, and this one just says deluxe on there, but apparently this one is a factory overclock model, which even rarer, like, let alone trying to find an 8500 at the full 8500 clocks, which is 275 megahertz core, 550 effective for the memory. Nonetheless, another one that was a little too good to pass up, and I wanted to definitely save it at the very least. Incidentally, I realized I called this card, or I said it was a Gigabyte card. It's an Albitron card. So, minor correction there. Not Gigabyte, it's Albitron. I'm sure probably upset some people with that mistake, but just wanted to mention that real quick. And pulling out the next card here. All right. Nice. So this one is a really nice example of a 9600 XT, if you couldn't tell. And this one comes from G-Cube. has one of these really interesting coolers that sort of kind of imitates the bigger brother 9800 XT in sort of the design and the graphic they put on the sticker there. Much more robust and larger than, you know, the stock cooler that came on the reference 9600 XTs, which were quite a modest cooler. This one is not only a nicer cooler, but has little RAM sinks on the back as well. And it does come with a slight overclock, at least to the memory. So normally a 9600 XT would come at 500 megahertz core, 600 megahertz effective for the memory. This one ups the memory clock to 700 megahertz. So yeah, you may have seen this, an identical one of these on the channel before. It's just a really nice version of the 9600 XT, and I do have one already, but I have a plan in mind for this, so I wanted to save it. So yeah, that's another good one. And down to last two. All right, so this one would be the smallest one in the box, but again, another one I just didn't want to have it go to waste. I wanted to save it. And this one, of course, comes from SiS. Looks like we actually have a driver disc. Is this original? Maybe. It's hard to tell. But anyway, this one is a SiS Xabre again. And in this case, a 400. So another example of a Xabre card, and the last one that they had on the list. But you just, again, SiS Xabre cards, they're just not common at all, especially the 400 and the 600. And even though I passed on this the first time around because the other one was nicer, I ended up asking them to send this just so they all get saved. So we got all the Xabres from the list. And, you know, even though it's not as nice as the other one, you can see it's still kind of an interesting design here with some extra features on it. I'm really curious what this is. Is this maybe a 3D glasses connector? We have a couple different TV outs. Pretty interesting to have S-Video straight off the card without needing to use any kind of a breakout thing for that. So kind of nice. And a lot more jumpers than you typically see on a modern card. I'm not sure what that's about, but again, very clean looking. This one maybe has a little bit of dust on the heatsink. Minor marks on the VGA connector, but if it was used, it was probably just tested for a little bit and put away. Does not look like it had extensive use. So glad to have saved this one, and am happy to be giving all the Xabre cards a new home. But all right, I've been admittedly a bit of a tease, saving the best for last, at least the best in my humble opinion. This was the one that kind of prompted me to request a second box because I don't know how I missed it the first time around. They sent me a list and there were pictures and accurate labels for each item, but I skimmed over this because I thought it was something else, I guess. But then when I saw it and realized what it was, I had to have it. And this is what it is. Let's get it out of here. And wow. It's so clean. It is so clean. Look, with these clear shrouds, you can usually see particles of dust. There's just nothing on here. There are marks on the DVI connectors, but again, if it was used, it was maybe used minorly. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm delaying. This is a GeForce 4 TI 4800, not the SE. And you do not find these ever. I'm not going to say they're the most super ultra rare of the rare. I mean, it's not like they don't exist, but the 4800 SE is the more common one that you would have found back in the day, and you'll occasionally run across them in modern times, but not the 4800. What's special about it? Well, when the GeForce 4 line first came out,
throughout the entire line, it was AGP4X, which was the current standard at the time in early 2002. Now, later on down the line, they released updates for both the GeForce 4 MX series, more commonly the MX440, and the TI series as well, to support 8X AGP, the latest standard. And while there weren't really any performance benefits in doing so, 4X AGP wasn't even close to being saturated in terms of bandwidth by the cards at the time. It was kind of this check mark feature, just to kind of entice people to have the latest technology, etc. Now, with the TI series, again, it was more common that you would find the 4800 SE. So what's the differences? Basically, the original TI line started with the 4600 at the top. You had the 4400 just underneath it, and then the sort of the mid-range option was the 4200. Now, in terms of clock speeds, I'm not going to list them out. I'll just have them on the screen here so you can see what the clock speed differences were. Now, interestingly enough, when NVIDIA released the update for the 8X AGP version, they called the higher end models the 4800s. So you did have an 8X version of the TI 4200, which they didn't bother to rename. It's just the TI 4200 8X AGP version. All right. And for the 4400, they renamed it to the TI 4800 SE. What does the SE stand for? I don't know. Slower edition, special edition. Not really sure. And then for whatever reason, they released the top clocked version, which is equivalent to a 4600, and called it just the 4800. And that's what we have here. Again, you just don't find these. And it's even more unusual to find examples with dual DVI. That's kind of cool too. Just really remarkable that they just had this on their list sitting there. And I'm kind of, well, I can't really say I'm kicking myself. I'm shocked that I didn't notice it the first time around after looking through the list. Admittedly, multiple times, I just assumed it was a 4800 SE. And even though I don't have one of those, I just wasn't really interested in that. I have 4600s, most of which are broken because they're an extremely fragile card. And yeah, I've had more 4600s die on me than any other card, as a side note. But I didn't feel the need for a 4800 SE. But given the rarity of just a 4800, the top clock version, I couldn't pass this up. So I'm really excited to have this. Again, should perform pretty much equivalent to a TI 4600. So I'm not going to have any new experiences with this card. There shouldn't really be any speed improvement with the support for 8X AGP. But just as a collector's piece, really nice. Despite the rough shape of the box and the tight packing, it does look like they are all relatively in good shape. Just got a little bend right here, which is really easy to fix, but no cracks or anything. Everything is nice and solid on there. No bends on the fins here. So, I mean, wow, that's awesome. I hope it works, because again, this line of cards, they're just not very durable. I don't know what it is about them. But I've had so many 4600s go bad on me, but maybe I'll get lucky with this. All right, so really I think that kind of just wraps this video up. Haven't got around to testing everything, but I did test the 8500 and the two MX460s, and you already saw the test results with the Xabre cards. And except for this one, thus far, they've all been working. Oh, I did actually test the FX 5700 Ultra as well, which worked. So it's pretty much everything. I just need to pop that one in at some point to check that one out, but that will be the last one. Anyway, absolutely incredible haul, and an incredible just gift, I guess, from NVX Systems. I mean, I guess may they rest in peace. I don't know what happened to the company, but if there's anybody that did work there that might be watching this, I really do appreciate this, and this will definitely go to good use, even among the stuff that I won't necessarily be keeping myself. I already know where they are going to go. I have some good homes lined up for some of it, and definitely some video plans with the Xabre cards. They really need to be covered in depth, and thus far just really haven't been, just due to the scarcity of these cards. So, you know, that's a rare opportunity, and I will not be taking that for granted. But I hope you enjoyed this rare PixelBOX episode, and probably won't be seeing another one anytime soon. Again, I'm just not taking stuff in like I used to, but couldn't pass up this opportunity. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I invite you to stick around, because although the amount of content that I put out isn't very frequent, I do have more on the way, and I'm working on that presently, so look forward to it. As always, thank you very much for watching, and take care.